Hey folks, it's Tim, Homestead Custom Meat Processing. I want to get a little bit better at doing some videos. I'm going to try to start up or get back to doing processing videos and on-site videos. But one of the things I wanted to do now was to go over the cut sheet. That seems to be the thing that most people need assistance with. So I was going to go over that real quick. Um, Keep in mind, one of the great benefits that my service offers is the ability to change things on the fly. There's been numerous times that I've been at a customer's and we get the first half of pig done and they've got it going into their freezer, and they might see a cut they want changed on the next half, or maybe the next pig, or maybe the hams are bigger than what they thought and we're able to cut them in half. You know, if you're taking your pig to a regular processor, you're not going to get that. You're going to get your stuff back frozen and it's done. But let's go over this cut sheet real quick. I'm going to go over it just how it is on my website so it's easy for you to follow along. The first thing we're going to start off with the loin. First of all, keep in mind on a pig, everything is doubled. When we split that thing down the middle, you know, you have the same thing on each side. So on one pig, you have two loins. But all right, so the loin is where you get your chops from, also your loin roast. So on here, you can select bone-in or boneless chops. Your traditional bone-in chop comes with the tenderloin attached. I have had customers that wanted the tenderloin separated, but still keep bone-in chops. So that is an option. Sorry, there's a fly flying around. So we can do the traditional bone-in chop with the loin attached, and we can take the bone-in chop and run it the full length. If you do bone-in chops, you do lose baby back ribs, unless you specifically say you want baby back ribs. And then we can do the bone-in chops on just the portion where the tenderloin is. And then when the ribs start, we can stop. At that point, we can do a loin roast. We can do boneless chops. That way you can still get your baby back ribs. So again, you get bone-in or boneless chops, or your loin roast. One thing that people, I think, get confused with when they go to the store and buy a pork loin, for whatever reason, a lot of those people, and I've even seen it advertised as a tenderloin. It's not the tenderloin. The tenderloin is a lot smaller on the inside of the pig. The loin is a large cut of meat. Again, that's where your chops come from. So on our website, you can select your thickness, and then where it says per package, that's how many chops you want to be packaged together. Now, if your pig is pretty large, then I'm going to be restricted to, you know, typically 3 or 4 chops per pack. I try to break it up to where if you do need to thaw out 2 packs to get the number you want, then, you know, I'll do that. Like if you wanted 6 per pack, then I'll do 3 in each if your pig is big. All right, moving on down. Oh, back up. So you can do a combination. You can do bone-in and you can do boneless. You can do 1/2 bone-in, 1/2 boneless. You can do traditional bone-in, just where the tenderloin is, and then boneless the rest of the way. And then you can incorporate loin roast. So it's really what works best for your family and how you want it done. Next is a tenderloin. Again, that is a small cut of meat. It takes a big pig to get a 1-pound tenderloin. It'd probably take a 350 to 400 pound pig to reach a 1-pound tenderloin. Which it's a great cut of meat, but it's not going to, a tenderloin's not going to feed a family of 4 for dinner. So it's just something to think about. It makes a great thing to slice up for breakfast, or something to accompany a larger cut of meat. The next in the loin section is the sirloin roast. The sirloin is at the very tail end of the loin where it meets the ham. This is one of my favorite cuts. I like to do it boneless and put it in the crock pot, pressure cooker, whatever you want to call it, and make pulled pork sandwiches, pulled pork sliders. It's also a great cut to do, slice and do it as a traditional roast. It's a really good cut of meat. All right, the next is the front shoulder. The front shoulder consists of the Boston butt, the picnic ham, and the front shank. So your Boston butt is your go-to for barbecue. That is what everybody, when they want to make pulled pork, that's what they go to. Your picnic ham is a smaller ham. It has a lot of tendons in it, so it's something that you're going to want to slow cook. A lot of people ask me, what would I sacrifice in order to get more grind for sausage? I would say the picnic ham is probably one of the better cuts to sacrifice to grind it up. But your Boston butt, we can do bone in or boneless, whole, halved. We can do steaks. I don't really like doing steaks because when we come out to your farm and process and we package, the meat is chilled, but it's still kind of warm. At your traditional butcher shop, on the day that they dispatch the pigs, it just goes into the cooler and it hangs for 24, 48 hours while they dispatch more or while they run through the ones that were already dispatched. So everything has the ability to really tighten up and get cold. When I cut Boston butt steaks, they come out good, but because the meat's still kind of warm and very loose, they're not the cleanest, or not cleanest, but I don't know the right way to say it, but it's not the prettiest cut of steak. It's still good. A lot of people love them, but just keep that in mind. It's not going to look the greatest. Your picnic ham, we can do bone in, boneless, whole, halved, cut that into steaks or grind it. The hocks, I incorporate the hocks and shanks into one. 90% of people can't tell the difference. Hock comes from the back, shank comes from the front. But this piece is something that a lot of people like to put in beans for flavoring. Darren, the guy that works for me, when he raises his pigs, he takes the hocks and he'll put those in the crock pot, cook them for almost 24 hours, I believe. But in that time, when he pulls them out, the meat just separates from the tendons perfectly, and they make tacos with it. They make sandwiches with it and all that. But most people cut them up for flavoring for beans and stuff. All right, the next section is the belly. Of course, this is where your bacon comes from. I can do it either uncured or cured. The cure I put on it is a brown sugar, salt, and curing powder mix. What you do is you leave that in your refrigerator for 7 to 10 days. You flip it over once a day. After that time period, you take it out and you wash it off in cold water, pat it dry, and from there you can smoke it if you're going to smoke it. You can put it in the freezer to deal with later if you don't have time, or you can start slicing it and frying it up. A lot of people like it just like that and not even smoke it. But depending on the size of your pig, depends on the piece of belly that you'll get back. I don't slice the belly. A lot of people want me to put it in 1 pound packs, slice it and put it in 1 pound packs. I don't do that. You're gonna wanna, if you're gonna smoke it, then it needs to be whole. So I'm either gonna take the belly and cut the belly into half, or if it's a smaller pig, I'll leave the belly whole. That way, when I put the cure on it, you still have a large chunk of meat to smoke. If you're getting it uncured, I do it the exact same way. If it's a big pig, then I'll cut the belly in half. If it's a smaller pig, I'll leave it whole. That way you can do with it how you want. Your ribs. So your spare ribs are the lower portion of the ribs. The baby backs, it's hard to describe, but there's a line, an imaginary line that we follow. You know, typically your spare ribs are going to be 6 to 8 inches long at the longest part. If you get the belly, if you request the belly, then there's not going to be a lot of meat left on the spare ribs. When you buy spare ribs at the grocery store, that comes from a pig that they weren't worried about putting a lot of meat with the belly. So this is one of the first ones where you kind of sacrifice what you're going to get. If you want real meaty ribs, then you're not going to get much of a belly. If you want your pork belly to make bacon, then you're not going to have real meaty ribs. There's not really a good in between on that, so it's kind of one or the other. But we can do whole rack, half rack, or we can grind them. Your baby backs, again, if you do bone-in chops all the way, you're not going to get baby backs unless you specifically ask for baby backs. We can also do country style ribs. I don't have those on the website. I need to get it added, to be honest with you. But again, if you ask country style ribs, then that's going to take away from your chops. So it's a little bit of give and take with everything. Moving on down, the next section is your ham. This ham is the actual butt of the pig. It is where you see your typical Christmas hams. It's the largest portion of the pig. You really need to think about how you cook for your family. If it's just 3 or 4 of y'all, you're probably not going to want a whole pig or a whole ham, especially if it's, you know, a 300-pound pig. That's going to be a 15 to 20-pound ham, if not bigger. So think about how you like to cook. We can cut them in half. I've cut them in quarters. When you cut them in quarters, it comes out more like a steak. We can do, if we do them boneless, then it's just gonna be like a large roast. But we can do whole ham, half ham, bone-in, boneless, ham steaks, 1 inch thick. Here again, and when I say ham steaks, when you go to the grocery store and you buy a package of cured country ham, you know, it's typically about 1/4 inch thick and oval. That is a ham steak. That is what I call a ham steak. A lot of people call them center cuts. I do have a lot of customers that really enjoy the ham steaks. They put them on like their Blackstone, and a lot of them cook them for breakfast. It is a good cut of meat, but just be mindful that you're getting, it's pretty much a center cut piece of ham. All right, the next one down is what we do with the trim. All right, so your sausage and all that comes from all of the trimmings as I'm fabricating the other cuts, unless you sacrifice a cut and because you want more sausage. I do fajita strips or chunks. You know, if you want to make carnitas or some other dishes that require either a strip, a fajita, or, you know, just in chunks. When it comes to the grind, we do plain ground, mild, medium, hot. I can add extra sage. If you have your favorite sausage seasoning, I can use that just as long as I know the ratio to go to. We can do a combination. You know, some people like to try mild and medium. Some want mild for the kids, hot for the dad or whatever. That's not a problem. Um, you know, it's just something we need to talk through. And typically it comes in 1 pound packs. I have had larger families request it in 2 pound packs. Again, that's not a problem. It's just something to let me know. All right, moving on down, you got the jowl. The jowl makes a wonderful bacon. I love to take the jowl from my pigs, cure it, and just do it like regular bacon, and it makes some really good bacon. A lot of people, they have a tradition on New Year's, they slice fresh jowl and cook it for New Year's, kind of like a luck thing. Not sure, but sounds good to me. But we can leave it whole, or we can cut it up for sausage. Getting into your fats, your leaf lard, that is the fat from the inside of the pig, wraps around the kidneys, attached to the belly. This fat is the favorite for people who do a lot of pastries, a lot of baking. It's the purest fat when you render it down. So a lot of people really, that's kind of like the prize fat. That's the fat they really want. All the other fat, you know, we're happy to package it up for you. You're a deer hunter. It's wonderful to put in your grind for your deer meat, or you can render it down. A lot of the homesteaders that I go visit, they make candles, they make soaps, all kinds of neat stuff. Got one family, their kid makes lip balms and stuff. There's a whole lot you can do with it. You're charged for it because when we skin the pig, it's got all the fat on it. So if you can figure a way to use it, I mean, your money's already paying for it. If you decide to throw it away, I'm sorry, I don't offer a discount. So it's good to find a use for it. A lot of people would take it off your hands for you, but render it down, use it to fry up fish, chicken, whatever. But it's good to have a plan for it. Also, on a side note, when it comes to the fat, if you have a breed that produces a lot of lard, Cooney Coon, American Guinea Hog, anything like that, and your pig is plump, you might want to have a cooler on hand and put your fat in there and ice it down. If you pile a bunch of fat into the freezer with your meat, that fat is going to do what it's designed, and it's going to insulate that meat and keep it and prevent it from being freezing, which is not good. Your meat needs to be 42 degrees or less within 24 hours of the dispatch. So if you pack your freezer full and you've got a bunch of fat in there, it's going to insulate that meat and you could end up with spoilage. So keep that in mind. If you've got some fat pigs, keep a cooler, give us a cooler, and you can put the fat in there, start icing it down to start cooling it down while your other stuff freezes, and then put the fat in. So just, again, if you've got one of the breeds that produces a lot of fat and lard, that's something to keep in mind. The heart, liver, feet, and ears, a lot of people keep these for, well, some people eat them, but most of my customers keep them for their animals, their dogs. A lot of people take the liver, slice it into thin strips, put it on the dehydrator, and you've got dog treats. Feet and ears, the same. People put them in the oven, kind of roast them, give them to the dogs, or give them to them raw. So that pretty much covers the cut sheet. On my website, there's a column that says per package. The only time that really applies is the pork chops or the sausage. If you're anything else, you can just leave it blank. So your pork chops, again, is how many you want per package. You know, if you got a family of 4 and you want 1 extra for leftovers, you'd ask for 5. So that's how you designate that. Again, if there's something special you want, reach out to me prior and I can try to accommodate that as best I can. Or, you know, if you're still confused and if you get this, will you get that? You know, more than happy to answer your questions. Shoot me a text, shoot me an email, message on Facebook. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. So I hope this helps. I hope it answers questions. Again, don't forget, everything is doubled on your pig. So on one pig, you're going to get 2 Boston butts. You're going to get 2 picnic hams. You're going to have 2 sets of loins, 2 sirloin roses, 2 sides. You're going to have 2 sets of spare ribs, potentially 2 sets of baby backs, 2 hams, 2 jowls. You're only going to have 1 heart and liver, unless there's something wrong with your pig. Haven't run into that yet. But again, please reach out to me if you have any questions. In my pricing, 40 pounds of ground come with each pig. Anything above 40 pounds, there's added cost. And I've had a couple people ask me why I do it that way. And it's because I'm mobile. You know, I don't have the ability, the room like these regular butcher shops that has these big Hobart grinders, these big drum grinders, to where you can put 40 or 50 pounds of trimmings in there, turn it on mix, season it up, and then grind it in one shot. You know, I've got a little tabletop grinder by Meet Your Maker that has been absolutely fantastic. If you're looking for a grinder for your home personal use, I highly suggest the Meet Your Maker brand. They've been wonderful with their customer service, and their product has just, I mean, it's a tank. It holds up well. It does a really good job. But again, people don't realize it takes longer for me to do sausage than regular cuts. So if you have a 20-pound ham and you typically cut that in half, all right, I've got 1 cut on the bandsaw and 2 packages to seal. That same 20-pound ham, if I were to grind it, I've got to cut it up into small enough portions that the seasoning gets on there and can be integrated equally. Because if not, you're gonna have, your seasoning's not gonna be right. But I've got to make a whole bunch of cuts, and that's 20 individual bags that have to be packed and then sealed. So that is why I do anything over 40 pounds as an additional charge. But 40 pounds is a lot of sausage. And even if you go over, you know, it's $1.50 per pound over, you know, your sausage in the store right now is $4.50, $5 a pound, and that's for the junk commercial brand or commercial raised pigs. So it's not even your good pasture pigs. Most people I know, they're selling their pasture raised pork for around $10 to $12 a pound. So even with the added charge, it works out to where it's not that big of a deal. It's well worth it. But again, it's a lot of work for me on my end, so that's why I have to do it. But again, thank you. I hope this helps. Sorry it's a little bit longer of a video, but hopefully I answered some questions and can help you get through that cut sheet. So thank you for watching. Have a good one.